Welcome back, Endgame community. I'm Pierre, and as always with me is Chris. We are the Fantasy Football Endgame, here to help you win with some start-sit advice for Week 6. These are our favorite must-start running backs based on matchups. Don't forget, bye week start now, so those decisions might be even tougher. We do have another giveaway as always, so stay tuned a little bit later in the video, and we'll tell you some details about that. But let's get going with running backs. Chris, who's your first choice?
I'm going to start with a potential waiver wire hero, and that's Darrel Williams of the Chiefs. Unfortunately, on Sunday night, we saw Clyde Edwards-Helaire suffer a knee injury. Now, it doesn't sound season-ending or serious, but he is set to miss a few weeks. But I really do like Darrel Williams a lot this week going up against that football team defense. So far this year, KC is allowing the highest percentage of scoring drives per game. But you know who's second? My football team, because that defense is terrible. So yeah, I know KC, they don't really use their running backs very much, but in a game like this, that should be very high scoring, a back and forth type of game. You got to think he's going to have some chances to score. And we've seen, even when Edwards-Helaire is healthy, Darrel Williams catches a decent amount of passes. So I think he has a very high floor in PPR leagues, plus a ton of upside if he can find the end zone once or twice in this one. So I love Darrel Williams in Week 6.
Definitely makes sense. Now, you did mention how bad that Kansas City defense is. So for that reason, in the same game, I'm going to look at the other side and say Antonio Gibson of your football team is an absolute must start. And so I get some of you will think, well, of course, I'm going to start Gibson. Look, I drafted him in the second round or the third round, and he's a guy I'm depending on. And that's true. Most weeks you would start him anyways, but sometimes we like to outsmart ourselves and say, well, it's Kansas City. You know, they're probably going to score a lot of points, get up big. Maybe Gibson gets scripted out of the game because they just can't establish the run. You know, honestly, Gibson's been pretty touchdown dependent lately anyways. He hasn't had a big rushing game, not going for 100 yards in the game yet. And his rushing numbers were pretty lackluster this past week as well, only 60 on the ground. But, you know, if you keep scoring, then there's a good chance you'll keep scoring because he's got 4 touchdowns in the last 3 games. He's a guy who will get the ball in the red zone. And he is, of course, a guy who can take the ball to the house any given play. This should be a high-scoring game on both sides. So we're hoping that at some point, you know, Gibson is involved, whether it's as a rusher or as a receiver. Don't forget, that's a big part of his game too. So I'm going to say, don't get cute here. Don't sit Gibson. He's a must-start. And I think he'll actually have a really good game against a defense that is also bottom 10 against running backs, not just passing. All right, before we roll on with more running backs, if you like this video, go ahead and click that thumbs up. We definitely would appreciate that, and give us a like. All right, let's move on to more running backs. Chris, who else do you like in Week 6?
I got another waiver wire hero for you, and it's unfortunately Devontae Booker. And I say unfortunately because Saquon Barkley suffered one of the flukiest, freakiest injuries I've ever seen on a football field. I am devastated right now. But that means Devontae Booker is going to be the guy. And the way the Giants roll, he's probably going to handle over 80% of the snaps, going to handle over 80% of the running back touches, and he's probably going to handle most, if not all, of the goal line work. And I know you might look at this matchup and think, ooh, it's the Rams. I got to be nervous. Yeah, the Rams have a great defense, but they've actually kind of struggled against the run this year. So I don't feel like he has as much upside as Darrel Williams because this whole Giants offense may be a mess this week, right? Might be without Daniel Jones, no Kenny Golladay, maybe no Tony, who knows, right? Everybody's hurt on this offense, but he's going to get so much volume that he also has a very high floor in this game. And we saw last week, he got 2 touchdowns. We know he's going to get the goal line work, so he can also find the end zone. So not quite as much upside as Darrel Williams, but still a very nice safe floor in Week 6 with the potential to score a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the matchup is not good against the Rams, one of the best defenses in the league. But with running backs especially, you have to chase the touches. Who's going to get that opportunity? That trumps everything. And Devontae Booker, I mean, there's no choice. He has to because there's really nobody else left in that offense, unfortunately. And he showed he can get the job done fantasy-wise last week. Along that same line of thinking, I'm going to look at Josh Jacobs. Now, the Raiders are going to be in the news for all sorts of other reasons this week, but let's focus on the football team itself. Jacobs is back to doing exactly what we thought he wouldn't do this week, and that's become the bell cow in this backfield. They signed Kenyon Drake for $11 million to do absolutely nothing, right? He got a few catches here and there in the first couple weeks. Last week, only 2 touches. That's it, 2 touches. And it was all Jacobs. He got 19 touches. No other running back even got a single one. So it's all Jacobs now. Seems like he's the guy. Now, if there's a new coach in place, maybe that'll change, but right now, I think we have to assume it's going to be status quo. Jacobs is going to be the guy going forward. And so you look at the matchup and say, well, Denver, that's a pretty good defense too. But you know what? Not as much on the ground because they just gave up over 100 yards. I think it was a 122 to Najee Harris. I think Jacobs can do just fine. I'm not predicting a 100-yard game necessarily. But again, he seems like a pretty locked-in RB2, especially in a week where you got 4 teams on bye. You got all sorts of running backs that are injured. Jacobs is kind of one of the safer options out there. So keep him locked in your lineup despite the matchup. All right, I did mention that giveaway earlier. As always, each week we give away a t-shirt from our sponsor, Bear Clothing, proud sponsor of the Endgame. So do check them out, bearclothing.org, and go on Instagram. Give them a follow. Okay, so search for Bear Clothing. But let's talk about the giveaway itself. So usually we talk about quarterbacks. Last week was the Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen matchup. Let's give a nod to a guy who hasn't been in the news for a minute, and he's back starting this time for the Seattle Seahawks, and that's Geno Smith. So Geno Smith, how's he going to do in his first start against the Pittsburgh Steelers? Well, here's the question. So if you want to in on the contest, just leave a comment on this video with your answer. How many total yards will Geno Smith account for, both passing and rushing, in Week 6 against Pittsburgh? Leave a comment with your answer below in this video. Give Bear Clothing a follow on Instagram, and then you'll be eligible to win that free shirt. All right, now back to the running backs. Chris, give me another guy that you like in Week 6.
No more waiver wire guys for you. These are guys you drafted, and I'm going to start with James Robinson. Picking on your Dolphins again. I picked on him last week with Leonard Fournette. That worked out pretty well. I don't see why it won't work out just as well for James Robinson. Look, I don't know what happened in the second half here in Week 5. Urban Meyer came out in his press conference and said something to the effect of, I didn't even realize James Robinson wasn't on the field as much in the second half. Like, what is Urban Meyer even doing over there? You don't even know who's on the field? But regardless, I don't think that's going to impact James Robinson in Week 6 because unfortunately, your Dolphins defense has taken a turn for the worse. They're terrible against the pass, but they might even be worse against the run. So no reason to think James Robinson isn't in line for another great game. If you've been rolling with him the last few weeks, you're probably feeling pretty good. Think you can roll with him this week and feel good once again.
Yeah, you could definitely feel good about it rolling out anybody against the Dolphins these days. Sad to say, it's kind of tough. If they lose to Jacksonville, let me just say, I think I might have to replace that hat up there, switch it out with something else. Not good for Miami football these days. But I am going to say, at the very least, I think we can depend on Myles Gaskin. Look, after last week, almost everybody benched or even dropped Gaskin. A lot of people just outright got rid of him because they were so fed up. So, of course, what does he do? He has his best game of the season. A career high, 10 receptions, scored 2 touchdowns, something that just Myles Gaskin doesn't do. And, of course, he went off against the Bucs. Tampa Bay, of course, being the defense that is the best against the run and toughest against running backs. So, of course, Myles Gaskin, who had done almost nothing all year, went off. I know we were both victimized by that, Chris. I have Gaskin on my bench in a couple leagues, as do you. But that's okay. It happens, right? Nobody saw that coming. I think at least we can say that going against Jacksonville, he should be dependable enough. We can put him back in our lineup and feel pretty good. He's probably not going to do what he did last week, put up 30-plus fantasy points, but he at the very least will not crush our spirits with another 0, I hope. Because if so, then it's just time to get rid of him for good. All right, guys, before we go on to our final picks at running back for Week 6, don't forget, you can support us all season long by becoming a patron. Go ahead and check out the information in the description below and find ways that you can support us and also get access to our free members-only start-sit show every Sunday morning. All right, so let's move on. Chris, give me one more running back that you feel good about.
Yeah, I always say if it isn't broke, don't fix it. I told you to start Leonard Fournette last week. Hopefully you did. I'm going to tell you to start him again. Going up against that Eagles defense. Look, the Eagles defense, they're good against the pass, right? This secondary has been much improved this year. They made Sam Darnold look like Sam Darnold last week. They also made Chuba Hubbard kind of look like a little mini CMC last week. So I feel great about Leonard Fournette in this game. I mean, yeah, Tom Brady's going to do his thing and the receivers are going to do his thing, but Leonard Fournette is going to get plenty of opportunity in this one. And last week, even with Gio Bernard back, he still handled 70% of the running back targets, and he handled 60% of the running back carries. So this is a guy getting close to workhorse volume, and I don't think people realize it yet. Don't worry about Leonard Fournette. In a great matchup against Philadelphia, a game Tampa Bay should be winning quite easily. He should get plenty of run in this one. And again, this Philly defense, much better against the pass than the run. So I feel great starting Leonard Fournette again in week 6.
And Fournette really should have had even better game last week if Tom Brady wasn't just a big bully running up the score on Miami and passing the ball in the fourth quarter. I don't know what that's all about. This old division rivalry, I guess, just isn't dead to him. All right, so my final running back, you know what? Let's just keep rolling with Zach Moss. Why not? I know you love seeing his name every time, Chris. Zach Moss, believe it or not, has become a dependable fantasy running back. At least 12 points in PPR leagues every game he's played. Remember, he didn't even play week 1. He sat that game, we think, due to injury. So he's become the guy who's basically taken over that backfield. And I say that backfield meaning in the best offense in the league, which is Buffalo. I think it's hard to dispute that based on the way they dismantled Kansas City this week. So Moss is a guy who now is basically the 1A, almost becoming just the sole RB1. Devin Singletary only 6 touches this past week. So Moss is a guy who always has touchdown upside. He's catching a few passes, and he's going to always be a part of that offense. You want a piece of that offense. And look, we already said there's not many running backs you can really depend on each and every week to have some sort of floor. And Moss now looks like he's one of those guys. Going against Tennessee, I think it's safe to say he'll have a pretty good time getting even more touches than he did last week. All right, so those are our favorite must-start running backs for week 6. Guys, you want more advice to help you out? Join our Discord, also information down below in the description, and you can get advice from not just us, but our great community that is growing each and every day. All right, good luck in week 6.